Hi, thanks for coming to my channel. If you like my content, feel free to subscribe and share. Okay, I'll cut to the chase. I'm a big fan of film, and I'm a big fan of the film industry. Um, and I like a range of films from across different eras, different genres. And with that in mind, I do have some interest in the Academy Awards as a concept and as an event, but I do feel that it's inescapable that in recent years it has become more politicized, and with that, it's become more polarized. Now, this year's Academy Awards, which have just passed, were apparently the least viewed ever since ratings began, the Nielsen ratings to monitor viewership. To put this in context, it's estimated that 10.4 million people in the United States tuned in to watch this. 10.4 million in a country of 330 million. Or to look at that another way, about 13.5 million people, it's estimated, watched the funeral of Prince Philip. And that's even with people in the UK, not everyone tuning in, and some people complaining about excessive coverage. The context there is that we've got a much smaller population, so for that event to garner more views is saying something about what should be one of the world's biggest arts festivals. I mean, okay, it's not every day a member of the royal family dies, so I suppose that is a big event in its own right, but clearly the film industry has a problem at the moment. And I think there's a range of factors for this. I'm going to read out directly from the Wikipedia article. Uh, but from the clips I've seen of this Academy Awards, it was bizarre. It was definitely quite woke. And that's not an attack on any individual. It's just that there's an obvious overture going on there. I don't think there's any escaping that. Um, and I think that if the Academy Awards keeps going this way, if it doesn't burn that people are tired. Ricky Gervais made that famous speech now at the Golden Globes, and he really laid into the whole of Hollywood, and they were laughing. It was at their expense. I mean, whatever you think of the guy, it took some balls to make that speech. And a lot of people applauded him because they thought he hit the nail on the head in terms of, people are tired of wealthy actors and directors lecturing them in that sense. Uh, I take the view that actors are entitled to their opinions. They're citizens. They're entitled to their opinions. But when you're getting an award for an art form, I think a lot of people, particularly at this sort of time, when so many people are struggling with the pandemic, with economic challenges, to hear wealthy people basically pat each other on the back and then lecture regular people on green issues, on race, on the rest of it. It's a bit, people find it a bit galling. That's the impression I get. This is not to say I don't agree with those who say that actors can't be passionate about things, they can't have opinions. They're people and they're citizens, but they need to understand that people go to the cinema foremost for entertainment. And yeah, some films do have a hard edge, drama, documentaries, that sort of thing. Of course, there is that side to it, and they are thought provoking, but I really don't think that. I think it's a turn off, generally speaking, to see an actor come up and get their award and then lecture people. Um, and I think there's a palpable sense that people are being turned off by that. So, go read out a bit from the Wikipedia article here. Like I say, it was quite bizarre. Francis McDormand made this strange sort of howling sound. I guess that was a reference to Nomadland, something in the film, but it was just a bit bizarre. And I do get the impression with Hollywood, there's a lot of like, how can I put it, in jokes. And, if they want to communicate with the public, I think they're polarizing people. I just think that there is a certain way that this is being approached that is polarizing people, and that's exemplified by the massive drop in viewership. So, the 93rd Academy Awards ceremony, presented by the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, honored the best films of 2020 and 2021 and early 2021. It took place in Los Angeles at both Union Station in the Dolby Theatre on the 25th of April 2021, 2 months later than planned due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on cinema. Nominations have been announced on March the 15th, 2021. Nomadland won 3 awards for most of the night, including Best Picture, The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, Soul, and Sound of Metal won 2 awards each. Another round, Colette, If Anything Happens I Love You, Minari, My Octopus Teacher, Promising Young Woman, Tenet, and Two Distant Strangers won 1 award each. Of those, Tenet is the only one I've seen. Um, the special effects were good, the action was good, but I think it was a classic case of Christopher Nolan being a bit too smart for his own good. I mean, as an entertainer, you can I think you have to be careful not to make your material so complex that it just is off-putting. And I'm a pretty clever guy, but I did find Tenet to be a bit, if it's the sort of film you need to watch several times. The ceremony marked the first time since the 78th Academy Awards in 2006 the no film won more than 3 awards, and the first time since the 44th Academy Awards in 1972, when the show ended with an Academy Awards an Academy Honorary Award to Charlie Chaplin. That the ceremony did not end with the award for Best Picture. It ended with Best Actress and Actor. According to Nielsen estimates, which began in 1974, this ceremony was the least viewed Academy Awards telecast on record in the United States of 10.4 million viewers. That's a very low number for a country with 330 million people. Um, it was centered in China apparently because Chloe Zhao, who's a Chinese-born director, she's an American citizen now, but Chinese-born director of Nomadland, apparently once criticized China. Well, that's to me, that's not so much a critique of the Oscars. That's just China being sensitive. Um, in addition, Hong Kong broadcaster TVB announced that the ceremony would not be shown live in the region for the first time since 1969. A TVB spokesperson told AFP that this was a commercial decision. It was speculated that the decision was in retaliation for the nomination of Do Not Split, a documentary on Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests in 2019. Um, Critical reviews, the show received a mostly negative reception from critics. There were a few clearly cringy moments. I mentioned Francis McDormand's strange wolf-howl thing, but by no means that's I mean, there's a point where Daniel Kaluuya made this reference to his parents having sex, and his mother was there, and I thought, come on, dude, that's your mother. Have some respect. Seemed a bit strange. So the awards were as follows. I'm not going to read all of them out, just the main ones. Best Picture, Nomadland, directed by Chloe Zhao. Best Director, Chloe Zhao for Nomadland. Best Actor, Anthony Hopkins for The Father. I believe that's about a man suffering dementia. Best Actress, Frances McDormand for Nomadland. Best Supporting Actor, Daniel Kaluuya, Judas and the Black Messiah. Best Supporting Actress, Yuh-jung, Minari. And she's Korean. She mentioned that Europeans and Americans couldn't pronounce her name. There was a bit where Glenn Close was one of the people. I don't know if it was Daniel Kaluuya or someone else, but she'd done this twerking thing. It was cringy. Um, Best Original Screenplay, Promising Young Woman, Emerald Fennell. Best Adapted Screenplay, The Father. Um, yeah, I'm not even going to bother reading out the rest, but basically, I'm not going to judge the individual productions because I haven't seen them all. Okay, maybe Nomadland is a good film. I'm not going to judge it yet because I haven't seen it. I'm not going to judge any of those people that have won either. Um, except to say that I do think it's quite obvious that there is tokenism going on there. I mean, that's not to discredit the individuals, but you can't help but feel, coming a few years after the whole Oscars so white thing, have a Chinese woman, a Korean woman, a black guy. I mean, I take nothing away from them. They probably deserve it. But one one can't help but feel it is a little bit of is that really, meritocracy, or is it box ticking? I don't know. I think we can only really answer that as if in coming years it's always like, the same sort of diversity situation going on. And before I'm pounced on with that, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with diversity, but if, we talk about people, woke activists talk about, oh, the Oscars need to look like society. Well, the United States is still a majority white country. And if you're wanting to reflect on society, you need to actually look at the figures. You need to look at how the demographics of society reflect on the nominees. And that's, actually it's more representative than people claim. Um, but it's not just that. Like I say, it's the politics of it. I think people are so tired of being lectured to by wealthy people in show business. Apparently, there was a homeless camp brought down and cleared away so that they could pull up to this event. I don't know if that's true, but I do think that Hollywood's got a serious problem. I think it's become far too political. It's always been political, but at least the politics in the past was sort of behind the scenes. Now it's right in your face, and it's, you know, uh, I think people don't want to watch an award ceremony like this and have to listen to lectures from wealthy people. Um, and I think that it just, it's no longer art for art's sake. There always has to be an agenda. Now, I'm not so skeptical as I saw someone say, I haven't been to the cinema since 1982 in a comment. Um, well, I'm not that skeptical. I don't actually think content is necessarily all bad. I've seen good films in recent years, moving films. And again, I don't take anything away from any of the people who have won awards this year. Not at all. I mean, I haven't seen Nomadland. Maybe Chloe Zhao is a very talented lady, and that's well deserved. So I'm not going to criticize any of the individuals, although I do think Daniel Kaluuya's jibe about his parents was a bit tasteless. Um, but that's another thing, in the past there was a classiness to Hollywood, and I think some of that's gone. It's just need to shock nowadays. Um, and that's maybe a sad indictment of our times. I don't know. It just the whole setup just seemed to be a sad indictment of where this is going. And they need to, what does Hollywood need to do? They need to stop, well, just people in show business in general, actors, directors, they need to understand that the majority of the public are tired of being lectured to. They're tired of seeing wealthy people stand up on that podium, like Ricky Gervais said in his Golden Globe speech, and basically try to outwoke one another. It might be their sincere views, and I think they've got a right to their opinion, but not in that context. Have their opinions, but they're primarily paid to entertain people. That's it. Okay, I do think a lot of actors think they're more important than they actually are, and it's a difficult job. I wouldn't say it's an easy thing to do. The the pressure of fame, the long hours of work and rehearsals and so on. So I'm not going to dismiss it as easy, but I think that they also need to accept that they're privileged people, financially speaking, at least. Maybe not in every aspect, but the average person just gets tired of seeing this. And there is definitely something that's missing in recent years. I think it's become too political. I think it's no longer art for art's sake. And a lot of the films that were nominated weren't even on the big screen. They were from Netflix or live streaming services, and I suppose that's unavoidable. So, to be fair to the Oscars, it wasn't entirely their fault. They can't help the pandemic, but I think for this to survive in the future, it needs to get a little bit more back to classic Hollywood in some way, where you have, talented people who thank their agents, they maybe talk a little bit about the philosophy of the film, but not to make it so political it just polarizes people. I think that's a problem because in the end of the day, we live in a troubled world. There's a lot of things going on out there. People go to the cinema primarily for escapism. That's a fact. Even when they go to see drama films, it's still a form of escapism. Yes, some of them require deep thinking, but to me, that is what's changed. And I think that the Hollywood establishment really needs to start understanding this. Otherwise, in this century, Hollywood will collapse. And I wouldn't take any pleasure from that. Whilst I get frustrated with the arrogance of the Hollywood elite, for want of a better term, I love cinema, I love film, and I don't want to see the industry collapse. I really don't. So for me, it's not so much the content. I think there's good content out there. It's the overriding, constant, and obvious agenda that's going on. I mean, in the 50s, people in the industry who were perceived to be pro-communist were blacklisted. But now it's kind of going the other way, where actors, directors, producers, etc., who aren't sufficiently woke enough will find themselves polarized. I'm not saying it's exactly the same thing, but even if you take Me Too, bringing in what I was talking about politics, all it takes now is for a man in Hollywood to be accused, and then he's totally blacklisted. He won't get any. Look at what's happened to Johnny Depp, and that's more about domestic violence as opposed to sexual assault. But despite the very questionable aspects around that case, and I'm not saying Depp's innocent, I'm just saying look at the way he's being treated now. He's being dropped from productions. So what's happening in Hollywood is because of Me Too, which was a legitimate campaign. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying there wasn't creeps like Harvey Weinstein who were abusing the position. But what's happening with Me Too now is men who are accused are just guilty by accusation. That's it. Forget due process. If they're accused of something, they are now guilty. They will be dropped from productions and the pariahs. Women in Hollywood will shun them. I think it's become quite unpleasant in that sense. What I say is, if there's accusations against someone, then they should be thoroughly investigated. The accusers should be listened to, and they should be held to account in the court of law. But don't punish someone when you don't even know for a fact that they are guilty. By punish, I mean dropping them from productions. I mean blacklisting them. I think it's quite dangerous, and no one wants to say that because if they do, then they're accused of trivializing um, issues like sexual assault and so on, which I don't believe it is. I believe it's just saying let's get some balance. That's just one example. The race issue, again, it's just so overriding. I do think meritocracy has gone out the window. I am not saying that the people who won this year don't deserve it, because by no means am I saying that. But I do think that, the Academy Awards is jumping over itself to appear woke. If, for example, let's just imagine that most of the winners were white, there would have been an outrage. So they're trying to protect themselves. Apparently, when Anthony Hopkins won, there was outrage that the late Chadwick Boseman didn't win. Um, no, I haven't seen Black Panther and I haven't seen The Father, but Anthony Hopkins is a fine actor, so I don't know why anyone would want to take that away from him. I don't know. It's just I do think it's sad to see what's happening here because I love film and I love the industry. I just don't like to see what's happening to it. There will be some people who will be triumphalist over this. They'll say, "Oh, it's all they deserve. It's great." Well, they might deserve it, but that doesn't mean it's something to welcome. It's a sad thing to see the world's foremost entertainment industry in such decline. And again, I'm not judging or attacking any of the winners involved. Nomadland might be a good film, and but just looking at the clips from this, it was quite cringy at certain points, and it's got increasingly cringy in recent years. That's my take. Let me know your thoughts.